Hey guys, this week I've been driving the 2024 Honda Passport Trailsport. I've spent quite a bit of time in this car, and a little bit more than I usually do with the press loans that we have, and I've really enjoyed living with it. We've done videos on the Passport Trailsport before. This 2024 model sees a few updates. Let's walk you around it real quick, and then we'll talk about what it's been like to live with and drive this week. So for 2024, the Trailsport sees some more rugged, off-road oriented general grabber tires. These have been specifically developed for the Trailsport. Still a little over 8 inches of ground clearance here. Not anything substantial, but we do have the very intelligent IVT M4 all-wheel drive system, which is basically super handling all-wheel drive, but in a Honda. And it actually does very well off-road. TheTopher did some off-roading in the Honda Passport Trailsport when it was launched. This video is just going to cover on-road driving today. Well, we can see we've got a slightly wider track, of course, different style wheels, an updated front grille and bumper. I mean, you know, some changes to the interior, but for the most part, this is the Honda Passport we have grown and known to love over the last few years. This Trailsport trim starts at around $43,000 as tested. It's about 46 grand. This is painted in radiant red. Very nice looking color on this SUV. Down here we've got a little bit more storage. I believe there's also a spare tire in there. Nothing in the back here. No tow package though. Normally this would be rated to tow about 5,000 pounds, just like the Honda Ridgeline. We have a ton of room in the back. You can fold down those rear seats very easily with the press of these two buttons. Some more storage here, and just an immense amount of space in this Passport. It's that Honda trick of making the inside bigger than the outside. They really do a good job with packaging here. These seats are easy to fold up. You just lift them and they resume their normal position. You don't have to be fiddling around with the levers or anything. Easy to get into. Rear window shades. We get some really nice features in this Passport Trailsport. A heated steering wheel, heated seats, auto climate control, rear climate control, though no adjustments back here. You can just control that from the front seat. AC outlet, 2 USB-C ports. Here's your armrest. All the materials, everything in here feels very, very high quality. Like it'll feel like this and last the test of time. This is just a very, very nice car to drive, use, live with. Love the ergonomics in here, physical controls and buttons everywhere. We have a somewhat updated infotainment from Honda here, but again, nothing revolutionary. It's kind of what they've been using for the last few years. CarPlay, Android Auto integration, but it is a wired connection. Lots of space to put people and things in the back of this Passport. I'm 5'10", this is my driving position. I have tons of room in the back of this, loads of headroom. Super easy ingress and egress. We also get a capless filler system, which is really nice. Let's see, where's that button? Right here. You can just stick it in, that's great. Let's pop the hood. 3.5 liter VTEC V6 making 280 horsepower. Of course, all-wheel drive. That engine is mated to a 9-speed automatic transmission. Can't really see much, but it's mounted low, and it actually handles quite well for being on all-terrain tires. We've got a set of nice, sturdy-looking roof rails up here. Sunroof. It looks a little bit funky, but I'm a fan of the short, squat proportions of this Honda Passport. It does actually have pretty good approach and departure angles. Though honestly, most people who are going to be driving these are just going to be getting the Trailsport trim for the extra cool factor and the occasional use on trails, going camping, etc. Most of the time, you're going to be driving this on the road, and I've got to say, the road manners are fantastic. So just a quick tour of this interior. We've got a slightly wider center console here for the 24 model year. Lots of space to put things, that's great. Everything is lined with, at least in the center console, a sticky material. Cup holders a little bit more slippy, but this is nice and grippy here. wireless charging for your phone. The phone has mostly stayed on the wireless charging element, but again, to connect to CarPlay, Android Auto, you're going to be needing a cable connection anyway. Heated seats will roast your bottom off. Auto climate control works well. Not the biggest fan of this push button shifter. It does okay, but I would prefer just a big lever, honestly. And just to reiterate how old school of a car this is, we get a foot operated parking brake. No electronic deal, which is actually quite nice. Over to the left here, we have an option for Eco Drive mode, which just dulls the throttle response a bunch. We have a button here to heat our windshield wipers and defrost them, which is really nice on cold wintry mornings like today. You can turn on and off our parking sensors, lane keep assist, and collision warning systems, as well as traction control. We have 2 seat memory settings, auto up-down windows for the front passengers. I'm not going to roll those down because I just washed the car. And for the rear passengers, you just have to hold those buttons. Really good visibility all throughout. Blind spot monitoring. There's a little light that illuminates right there. Great big visors that slide. This is a brand new car. Only got it with about 170 miles on it. I've put over 400 miles on it this week. So things are still breaking in a little bit. Place to put your sunglasses up there. Interior lighting looks good. Supposedly, this Passport Trailsport is supposed to have ambient lighting, but you can barely see it at night. It's orange, which kind of matches the stitching on the wheel and the contrast stitching here on the seats and everything. And it should, in theory, look really good. It illuminates the footwell, kind of the sides here, the dash, but it's so dim you can barely tell unless you have the screen at full brightness, which is too bright to see at night. Reverse camera is pretty average for Hondas these days. You get a nice almost 180-degree view. I would like a forward-facing camera in this Trailsport, but again, that is not an option. I think really the only option here is you can get a set of front skid plates to protect the engine and some other things underneath the vehicle. Pretty simple looking gauge cluster here. We've got a gauge here for our coolant temperature, fuel level, and then the center screen that shows us our information on our trip computer, all-wheel drive torque distribution, which will be interesting to watch during the drive, maintenance info, different various settings. You can see this week I've averaged 21 miles to the gallon in the last 407.3 miles. That's spot on for the city highway mix. This is rated for 24 miles to the gallon on the highway, 19 in the city. And again, this engine is still kind of breaking in a little bit. So just past 553 miles, so we should be able to push it just a little bit and engage VTEC. Let's go do that. Steering is really nicely weighted in this Passport Trailsport. You get a bit of a growl from these all-terrain tires, but overall, this is very, very quiet inside for a Honda. Honda's had a little bit of trouble with road noise in their vehicles lately, and this seems to feel pretty good. These seats are very, very comfortable, especially on the highway. I did spend quite a few miles in a Honda Ridgeline a few weeks ago, and I wasn't as comfortable in those seats. This Passport Trailsport, these seats are a huge improvement. Much more comfortable. I could drive in this all day long without any complaints. The 9-speed auto shifts pretty quickly, pretty seamlessly. We've got paddle shifters behind the wheel, a sport drive mode if you just press the DS button right here. That'll increase your throttle response, keep the revs a little bit higher up. You can also have manual control of those gears too. We'll let the gearbox warm up just a little bit before we engage that. Super quiet and soft over bumps. The ride quality here is a real highlight with this Passport. And on these all-terrains with all the extra sidewall, it's just so cushy, so comfy. Let's talk about IVT-M4. So this can send up to 70% of the engine's power to the rear wheels. And between those rear wheels, it can send 100% of that 70% to one wheel or the other, the right or the left rear wheel, which is really nice. It's basically just torque vectoring all-wheel drive, Acura style, with super handling all-wheel drive. but in this Honda Passport. It works really well off-road. It works really well on-road to provide better handling. It's a really pretty trick all-wheel drive system. You can see here where it's sending power in this little graphic. Stop-start there at a light. You do have to disengage that if you want it disengaged every time you start up the vehicle. VTEC is ferocious with this 3.5 liter V6. I absolutely love it. It sounds fantastic. This is actually kind of a fun crossover to drive. It's shorter wheelbase, makes it handle and nimble and small and easy to place in traffic. And it's just not as cumbersome as a lot of the other SUVs in the market. Honda does a really good job with that in their vehicles. Even the Pilot is fun and agile and nimble. It has some driving character to it. Same thing with the Passport. It sounds good. Paddle shifters. It's not the most spirited gearbox. Taller gears, especially given that it is a 9-speed. It will auto upshift at redline. I think it sounds great. It's one of the highlights of this car. Cruising here on the highway, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, lane centering. The driving assistance systems in here, at least with adaptive cruise and lane centering, they work okay. Honda these were impressive maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. Today, compared to the competition, not as impressed with these systems. The adaptive cruise control is a little bit too timid. It really takes a long time to speed up and pass vehicles. It feels like it's on the brakes a lot, trying to maintain speed with traffic around it. Honestly, this week, I didn't use it a ton on the road. The lane keep assist is nice to use in a pinch if you need to change something or select something on your infotainment screen, but otherwise it kind of prompts you a lot to put your hands on the wheel. It's not the system that I would just leave on for hours and hours on end. It's nice to use here and there, but there are definitely better systems from competitors. And ultimately, this car, I think, is probably best in class to drive, but the tech and everything else is just kind of average. It's a little bit meh, which is fine. There are some really good things about that, and that the ergonomics are fantastic. This car is just so easy to use and live with. There's no issues with getting around and using this vehicle. The functionality here is just awesome. But as a result, it does feel a little bit old school in terms of its tech. We don't have a branded audio system. The sound system here isn't amazing. The Pilot's Bose is much, much better. But again, it gets the job done. I think it gets by. But you're going to want something like the Acura MDX or maybe the Honda Pilot with the Bose for better in-car audio. It would be nice if Honda updated with a branded audio system for this Passport Trailsport version, especially for $44,000, $46,000 or so. Just one of my favorite V6s. It's so good. Power feels nice too. You compare this to something like the 4Runner, and the road manners here are just so much better. It's such a nicer vehicle to live with on a daily basis. The gearbox tuning, the engine tuning, it just feels more powerful. It's not hunting gears all the time. It doesn't feel underpowered like the 4Runner can. The ride is softer. It's less NVH over bumps. Granted, this doesn't quite have the off-road capability or ground clearance of a 4Runner, but if it did have the ground clearance, all said and done, it'd be pretty darn close. We don't have a transfer case, and of course this isn't a body-on-frame SUV, but it's a nice stiff chassis. It's very safe. There's a lot of pros here, a lot of positives to this compared to some of the body-on-frame competitors. Brake pedal has a nice bite too. All of your driver inputs here are very, very well calibrated. Honda's just done such a good job with that lately. While we're sitting at this light, let's sneak in just a quick sound system test here. We've already done this in the past, but we're about to wrap the video up. Might as well. It's all right, but definitely not up to the same level of quality as the Bose and the Pilot, for example. It's okay for the price point. Let's see how it puts its power down here around a corner. Clawing itself out. Good traction there, good power. Yes, yes, Honda Passport. Forgot to put it in sport mode. Oh well, that's okay. At about 70 miles an hour, you'll average 24 miles to the gallon, maybe a little bit more. 80 miles an hour, you'll be in the lower 20s, 20, 21. Definitely not the most aerodynamic SUV. It is a big brick. But pretty minimal wind noise, tire noise at speed. This is great. You can see here just steady state cruising on the highway. It's only engaging that front axle to save on fuel. That's the I part, the intelligent part of the iVT M4 all-wheel drive system. It's got plenty of power to lose tailgaters who are behind you. Oh, I love VTEC. Basically the engine of a sports car in an SUV. Alright guys, well those are going to be my thoughts on the Honda Passport Trailsport. No major revolutions here, just slight subtle changes. They've softened the suspension, they've changed the tires. They could have added a little bit of a lift to this Trailsport package, given it about 9 inches of ground clearance, kind of to put it up there with the Wilderness package Subarus or the 4Runners, but no, we're still kind of at a little around 8 inches or so ground clearance, which is fine. You can always lift it yourself, I suppose. There's plenty of aftermarket options. But as a vehicle to live with on a daily basis, this has been a fantastic driver. Probably best in class from a driving perspective. Tech is a little bit behind, but I'm willing to kind of live with some of those things because of the nice ergonomics in this interior, the physical buttons, the easy-to-use controls. Honda's so good about that these days. The only things I would maybe want out of a car like this, only other features are forward-facing camera would be great, and a branded Bose audio system with a little bit better sound quality would be nice. But again, those are kind of grasping at straws. Honda's pretty much done everything else that I would want out of an SUV in this class, and it makes it a pretty compelling option and a very recommendable one for me. Something I'd actually consider buying someday if we needed an SUV like this. So anyway, one of the top picks for sure. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.